I'm Mondo, and I'm here to help you with your board game design. I'm a developer for The Op, which is a publishing company that's known for Gnome Hollow and Flip 7. And I just got back from 2 board game design conventions where I saw a ton of prototypes of games that designers are working on. And as I was playing these games, it was really apparent that a lot of designers don't know how to create a game that stands out among the thousands of submissions that publishers like The Op might see every year. It's a difficult thing to do, but it's also pretty important, so let's talk about how you can make your board game stand out. Something that I've noticed and have been guilty of myself is that designers tend to stick to established mechanics and board game tropes when they're designing. I can't tell you how many games I saw where you were drafting cards or tiles and then creating a tableau that was scoring points based on what was in your tableau, without much else to the mechanics that made it different than the 100 other games that are like that. Now, I don't want to be discouraging here, but it's important to ask yourself as you're designing a game what it is about your game that is going to make it stand out or make it different from other games. As an example, if you have a dice drafting placement game that's puzzly and where you're putting your dice into some kind of grid and then scoring points based on the arrangement of your grid at the end of the game, you're putting yourself in direct competition with a lot of games, foremost of which I believe is Sagrada. So for a publisher to see that game and to want to play it and try it, it's going to have to be better than Sagrada for the publisher to consider it. Because from our perspective, we're looking at it as how is this game going to outsell the established games that are already in this genre that already do the similar things that this game does. And if we don't have a clear answer for that, then that game just isn't appealing as a product. Now that's just one example, but it's a trap that designers fall into where they create a game that has similarities to other games, but they don't distinguish it from those games in any way. And while your theme might do some of that lifting, I know for gamers like myself and for a lot of people in the hobby, if mechanically it's no different or there's not much different about it, the theme isn't going to save it. I believe an important factor when you're trying to create a unique game is your starting point. Oftentimes designers start with a theme in mind and then build a game that has mechanics that match more or less that theme. And while that's not the wrong way to do it, that does tend to lend itself to creating a game where you are leaning on your experience of mechanics that already exist to create this game to match the theme that you have in mind. Which means it's harder for that game to have that unique, novel spark to it that publishers and consumers are looking for. One game I saw this weekend was a tile laying game like many tile laying games, but the tiles themselves weren't square or hexagonal. They were shaped in this really unique way, like a pixelated 3 almost. And the gameplay was really simple, but it was all about creating shapes based on the unique shape of that original tile. The shape of the tile itself created this whole system of gameplay that had its own constraints and had its own challenges and felt really different. And as I was speaking to the designer, it was clear that they started with the shape of the tile in mind and then tried to see what kind of game they could create with it. And the result was a really unique and interesting gameplay experience. And one that I remember and still think about, which is a great sign for the chance that it has to get published. Now, it's not a game that we're going to publish because it doesn't quite line up with our market, but you get the idea. Another thing that I've noticed is that when I'm impressed with the novelty of a new board game design, it is not uncommon for that design to be by somebody who is not a traditional board gamer. I saw a game this weekend from a college student who was an illustrator and a video game producer who designed this whole card game system that was really, really interesting and felt unlike anything that I had ever played before. I think the outside of the box thinking that comes from someone that's not steeped in traditional board game mechanics and systems creates the opportunity for those interesting and novel mechanics. So if you're a board game designer with a lot of board game experience, then you have to try and think out of the box sometimes. And while that unique novelty of mechanics doesn't always mean that the game is really fun or the gameplay experience is really exciting, it does set you up for success in trying to make a game that has something different about it. So I know this is easier said than done, but it is a very important consideration as you're working on your game to be able to identify the thing about it that is unique, that it does differently than any other game. And if your playtesters play it and are maybe just going through the motions and can't identify that unique piece of it themselves, then it might be something you need to look at a little more deeply. Anyway, I hope this was helpful and good luck.